And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 98th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, July 23rd, 2019, where I am your host, Matthew Lukens. You can catch our live broadcast Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. on our YouTube page or on our website. If you missed the live broadcast, you can subscribe for free to our show for free. Did I mention it's free? On whatever platform you listen to podcasts, so you can listen on your own free time. Check out our Twitter and Facebook at the Hoosier Sound and at Indiana HQ. Subscribe, turn that notification bell on. All the information is on our website, indianahq.com. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk. On the docket tonight, it was a busy week this past week for Indiana football. Big Ten Media Day took place, and our one and only, our contributor, Nithin Krishnan, was there to watch the event live. He was there. He was in the room. He was talking to people. We are going to break down what was said before moving on to the football schedule. It's time to take a deep dive into the opponents for the Hoosiers will be facing this season. Here with me tonight, alongside Nithin, is Blake Betzner. You've heard him here on here before. He's our football guy for Indiana HQ. His football insight is unparalleled, and we always love having him on the show. How are you doing tonight, Blake?
Really good. It's end of July, so right around the corner of football season. So couldn't be happier. Best time of the year.
Right. It's just about to start up. I'm ready for some Indiana University sports. I've been itching. I've been binging TV shows all day because there's like no sports on. So
there's not a lot to do right now, is there?
I need something to do. Nathan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I mean, I echo what Blake said. Big Ten Media Day was fun. You know, it was last Thursday and Friday. IU's portion really was all day Thursday. Tom Allen just restated and reassessed his comments on belief and coming together as a team. He talked about depth. We've got a couple of really good articles up on the Indiana HQ website that I would recommend everyone just check out. It doesn't take much time to scroll through them. There's some video there of Tom Allen. He was very optimistic, very enthusiastic about this upcoming season. And I don't think it was superficial. I don't think it was fake. I think it was genuine, which is what pretty much everyone else says about Tom Allen. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the season goes with both of you guys as we'll kind of go game by game coming up here. As we'll see if we have IU in a bowl game or out.
Yeah, I'm not too optimistic for this season, but I'll just throw that out there to start with. But yeah, anything else stick out about Media Day, Blake, that you can think of?
Yeah, Media Day is just like kind of like everything else. You go listen to coaches talk about how good their teams are going to be and all their strengths. You don't hear a lot of negatives. It's just part of it. And so it's fun to listen back and forth, to, get excited a little bit. It's what it's kind of there for. But we kind of all know that, even though I believe Tom Allen does believe he's got the best team he's had here for sure, I'm sure he still has some question marks.
Oh, yeah. Nithin, what was like the media presence discrepancy between when Tom Allen was talking and when like the Harbaughs of the world were talking? What was that like?
It was kind of crazy, right? I mean, essentially the way it was set up was that there was this really large conference room that was sort of broken up into different sections. So Tom Allen had a podium for himself. At the same time, Michigan State head coach Mark D'Antonio had a podium for himself, and Scott Frost, Nebraska's head coach, had a podium for himself, and so on. Tom Allen's media presence is kind of down the middle. I would say Maryland and Illinois, for example, had many fewer people covering their program. It almost looked like it was just like the student newspaper and the radio station covering those couple programs. But look, compared to Nebraska, for example, my gosh, it shouldn't have surprised me that there was such a discrepancy. But when they say football matters at Nebraska or Ohio State, oh, you better believe it. There were rows upon rows of journalists and TV cameras. It almost was like the president was talking or some sort of Hall of Fame induction ceremony was going on. It was kind of crazy.
I feel like it's the same way for when we're talking about Big Ten basketball, right? It's like the Indianas, the Michigan States of the world have all the media attention, and poor Rutgers is sitting there over there in the corner, like having four reporters talk to them. All right, so we're gonna move on. Nathan, I'm gonna still have you talk. Who won this week in this past week of IU sports?
Well, it's funny because usually around this time I want to talk something outside of basketball and football, but this person I'm going to talk about has kind of been a consistent theme in this section. That's Lily King. Arguably IU's most decorated athlete of our generation. Lily King, a swimmer, in case for some reason you don't know, she was a gold medal winner in the 100-meter breaststroke competition at the FINA World Championships in Gwangju, South Korea. King, who currently holds the world record in that event, not too shabby for a college recent graduate from Evansville. Mm-hmm. She won the competition over her rival Russia's Yulia Yefimova, and she beat her to the wall. Her time was 1 minute 5.49 seconds. So next time you're just hanging out at the pool this summer, think about what Lily King's doing and try to meet that standard.
I don't think I'll come anywhere close, but Lily's a great representative of the university, and I'm so glad that she was a Hoosier, and now she gets to go and compete in the Olympics next summer, right? So, what is it, in Tokyo? Right?
It is. Yeah. And in fact, I also think Lily King got an endorsement deal recently. So now that she's out of IU, she doesn't have to worry about that kind of stuff anymore. So it's all everything's coming up golden for Lily King as usual. No surprise there.
Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna move on to the football schedule. I'll run it down real fast, and then we're gonna go over the games independently. But we'll start. I'll just run it down right now. So first game is neutral. The 31st of, oh God, what are months? Is that September? No, it's August. All right, guys, we're off to a great start. So August 31st against Ball State at 12 o'clock. It's a neutral game, which I didn't think I would say for a while for Indiana football, but we're playing Ball State in Lucas Oil Stadium at 12 o'clock on CBS Sports Network, which means we're going to have to find a way to watch it down here in Florida because I don't have CBS Sports Network. Anyways, moving on. The next home game is now, we're into September 7th against Eastern Illinois, and that is at 3:30 on Big Ten Network. That is at home, of course. That probably should be a win, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Then our next home game is at home against Ohio State on the 14th at 12 o'clock on Fox, which means that'll be a nationally televised game. Yoo-hoo, at home against Ohio State. We all know how those go usually. Then our next game is at home against UConn, to be announced for the network, but it'll probably be Big Ten Network. And then our next game is away, and we're still in the month of September, by the way. Away on the 28th of September at Michigan State at a 3:30 or 4 o'clock game. So depending on how good we are at that point, that looks like that's the ESPN ABC slot. But you never know, or Fox. But it's going to be nationally televised if we're 4-1 at that point going away to Michigan State. So that'll be interesting, or 3-1. Sorry, excuse me. And then we have a bye on October 5th, and then at home October 12th at Rutgers. That's to be announced TV-wise, but that's also homecoming. So I will be at that game, and then away on October 19th at Maryland, away October 26th at Nebraska, then at home to defending Big Ten West champs Northwestern, and then away at Penn State on the 16th of October. And then the last two games, so caught it all up, last two games are November 23rd at Michigan, and then November 30th at Purdue. Home against Michigan, away at Purdue. So that's our schedule. I'll run it back real quick again so you guys can get a taste of it. That's Ball State, Eastern Illinois, Ohio State, UConn, Michigan State, bye week, Rutgers, Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Penn State, Michigan, Purdue. So there's our schedule. That's what we're working with Indiana football. And before we jump into how we're going to get 6 wins, I'm going to give our social media shout out of the week. Nathan gave me this idea earlier, and he said we should shout out Trace Jackson Davis for his sick backflip off the boat. Probably at Lake Monroe from the Indiana University basketball account. So shout out Trace Jackson Davis, 5-star recruit, freshman. He's going to be starting for the basketball team this upcoming year. We're excited to see him play. On Twitter, it's at Trace Jackson. That's TRAYCE Jackson. And then on Instagram, it's Trace.Jackson. So, go follow him. Make sure you give him a follow. Go like some of his posts. Give him some love. All right, so moving on. How does IU get 6 wins, guys? Blake, I'm going to throw it over to you. What are our should-win games? If you had to give us about 4 or 5 should-wins, what are those should-win games?
All right, I'm going to do a little prerequisite of my thought process here.
All right.
I've been watching IU football for a long time, and just comparing last year, this year, we were 5-7 team last year, and there's nothing that we're worse at this year than we were last year. Let me just give you a point with quarterback positions better, running back positions deeper, wide receiver, with WAP, we're going to be better, a couple add-ons, offensive line. A lot of people are down on the offensive line, and that kind of blows my mind because I think we're really good with our front 5, and I think we got 2 to 3 backups that are going to be fine. So I think that's going to be a strength of our team, other than some people are seeing it as a weakness. But I'm interested to see how that plays out. Defensively, we're good just about everywhere. Interior, our 2 interior linemen, or 1 and 3 techniques, or Juan Harris, and I'm not sure the other guy, Jerome Johnson, probably. I mean, both quality players. So I don't see a huge weakness. Like last year, I felt like we had quite a few around the area. We played, I think, 13 freshmen last year. And eventually, Indiana's going to get to the point where they can't play 13 freshmen because they're going to have enough depth that doesn't happen anymore. So we're still rolling into that. Just like Tom Allen said it, somebody asked him about the running back room, and they didn't mention Cole Guest. And, he was right. I mean, he was our starter last year until he gets hurt with an ACL. He might be Stevie Scott if he doesn't get hurt. So there's a lot of depth. So saying that, Ball State scares me to death. And there's a couple of reasons Ball State scares me to death. Is because as a, somebody that gets, some smaller looks, but has dreams of going to IU but doesn't have the opportunity, goes to Ball State, and he hates everything about IU because they didn't give him a chance. I'd much rather play at Toledo, Ohio, Miami of Ohio, whoever. But Ball State, as you see, they did Notre Dame last year, can scare the living crap out of you, and especially the first game of the year. And I think that we need to tackle that question, if and also who the starting quarterback is going to be. I think that, because I think you got 2 different numbers. I think if Peyton Ramsey is a starting quarterback, I think we could win 6. I think if one of the other guys are starting quarterback, I think we could win 8. I mean, I think that's the max. I mean, I think that's our ceiling. I mean, obviously our floor can be lower, but with Peyton Ramsey, we're 1-6. If we believe if he goes all out and tries somebody else, I think we win 7 or 8. So let me go down here. Ball State has got to be a win, obviously. Eastern Illinois has to be a win. They averaged giving up about 42 points a game last year to the teams they played, so that'll be a good game for us. UConn, again, maybe the worst defense in football, so from last year. So we, again, another back-to-back kind of games with Ohio State in the middle that we should feel pretty good offensively.
Right.
And Rutgers. So there's our 4 games. I feel like if we don't win all those 4, we could be in a little bit of trouble. Nathan, you agree? Is that something you agree upon, or?
Yeah, I think I'll shoot over to you.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Blake, as far as the 4 games that you mentioned. Ball State, I understand that they scare you, Blake, but and your point, I do kind of get what you're saying.
I watched them play. Last game I think I went to, it was non-Bloomington, was at Lucas Oil, and they beat us about 70. So yeah, I got a bad memory in Lucas Oil.
Yeah. The starting off with Ball State reminds me a lot of the Indiana basketball regime starting out with Indiana State. So it's bad memories all around.
Yeah,
but
hopefully, how dare you bring that game up? Jeez.
It's content. We have to bring it up. Anyways, so that's keep going.
As far as Ball State goes, though, I think, currently the Vegas odds makers have installed IU as a 17-point favorite for that first game. I think a big reason for that is because their starting quarterback and running back from last year both transferred. Riley Neal transferred to Vanderbilt, an SEC school, and James Gilbert transferred to Kansas State, a pretty solid Big 12 program. So be trying pieces in some key places. And facing them week one on a neutral site, I think IU will win that one. Eastern Illinois got a new head coach this year for the first year. It's a guy who comes over from Northwestern's program, which is kind of interesting. I think it's the first coaching change Northwestern's had in like 7 years, either their head coach or their assistants, which is kind of unheard of. But Adam Cushing is the new Eastern Illinois coach. It is a program that had a lot of success at the FCS level, but they're going through a bit of a transition right now. So I think IU wins that one. UConn, I don't know if we can exactly talk about or pinpoint how bad they were last year. I mean, they were the worst team in the FBS subdivision as far as point differential goes. That's all 130 teams. They were outscored by something like 31 points per game. I think Rutgers was pretty close to the bottom, and they were only outscored by 17 points a game. So you kind of see the big difference there.
Yeah, UConn is not good.
UConn just had their projected starting quarterback transfer out of their program like a month or 6 weeks ago. So they're going through a lot. And then you talked about Rutgers. I think Rutgers will be better than they were last year, but IU's going to get them at home, especially off a bye week. So I think they'll beat Rutgers. So that's the 4. I think you can pretty confidently lock down those 4. I would be floored. And I know IU's pulled some surprises recently, over even more than recently, the past 10, 20 years. But I think those 4 are pretty firmly, comfortable wins for this IU team.
All right, so if you're not following the schedule so far, Ball State, Eastern Illinois are our first 2 games. Then next game we haven't talked about yet is Ohio State at home. So, guys, I want to know, can we beat Ohio State this year? Is it possible that with Urban Meyer gone and with Urban Meyer gone and being at home with a much improved football team with experience and third-year coach, is it possible?
Of course. I remember I watched the game, the night game 2 years ago. Was that 2 years ago? And we were up 21-20 at halftime. And to me, that might have been the worst team we've had in a long time. I mean, we compete with them every year. Whenever you bring somebody in of that magnitude, we're going to compete with them. I mean, very seldom do we not compete and do what we're supposed to do. So it's going to be a big test for Day as the new coach to, have their back against the wall against an IU, because that's the last thing he wants is, his first conference loss to be in Indiana. I mean, there's got to be some scares and some worries and hopefully some conservativeness that, hey, just run it. Just don't do anything stupid. Just try to get a win. And, with our offense now, hopefully can score more points and more explosive that, we force them not to be conservative, not to just try to pound it down our throat and win in the fourth quarter like they've done the last 2 or 3 times we played them. So I'm sure he's a little nervous in that game. Just how we've played him in the past. I mean, he's been there, so he knows what's going on.
Right, and this is more to your point about why starting Ramsey would make us have 6 wins as our ceiling, whereas starting Tuttle or Penix would be 8 wins. Because what you're saying, or what you're implying with that, is that you're going to get more explosive plays with Penix and Tuttle at the QB position than you would with Ramsey. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, to me, if you would ask me, beginning of last year, I was a huge Ramsey fan. I still am. I think Ramsey could, and we'll talk about Penn State later, but I think he, in a different situation, he could have been McSorley as a senior. But he was forced to play way too early, and he had an opportunity to win the job last year, and he just didn't get it done. And you can only give, at this level, when you're trying to build a program, you can only give, if he'd have won 2 more games and they would have won 7 games last year, he's a starter for the next 2 years, no doubt. But he just did not get it done when he had to get it done. And now they got to go for the guy that, has the opportunity to be a star, at that level, instead of just a guy that, is going to be really good as a senior. So I feel really bad for Ramsey. I think he's got a lot of talent, but I think he was put in a really bad position because of our recruiting 4 or 5 years ago with quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. He should just be starting now and be taken off. But that wasn't the situation he was in. And every IU fan thinks the same thing too. The negativity that follows Ramsey for some reason, I think it's a lot with the board also. I think it was a mixture of that, not letting him open up the ropes, change things, just our thought process and our, especially the players too. The players hear the same things, everybody in the media talks about, it's whoever the guys believe in. And I think that's who they'll pick. But I think the guys probably believe in the arm strength and the attributes that the other two guys carry.
All right.
But yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. I think that's the games that we're not supposed to win. A quarterback, you take Tom Brady off the Patriots, take Peyton Manning off the Colts, it's a big difference. So
absolutely,
that guy's got to be a stud.
Nathan, what are your thoughts on Ohio State?
Yeah, no, on that quarterback note at Media Day, Tom Allen kind of hinted that Ramsey kind of had the upper hand in the competition right now just because he's the returning starter. But I did get the vibe from Tom Allen that it was an open battle. It was going to be a competitive fight between those three guys, Ramsey, Penix, and Tuttle, for the entirety of fall practice up until that first game. And I bet we're going to see some experimenting happen those first couple of games against Ball State and Eastern Illinois, a couple of games that I do think personally IU will win comfortably. As far as Ohio State goes, assuming that IU has their answer at quarterback, not only do I think that it is possible that IU could beat Ohio State, I think the Hoosiers will beat Ohio State in Week 3 in Bloomington on national TV and immediately thrust Ryan Day's coaching tenure into disaster. Ohio State's going through a ton of transition and turnover right now, and I think this is the chance. This is the window slightly ajar where the Hoosiers have depth, have multiple threats at different positions, and this is the matchup that I think they can really exploit. In fact, I think Ohio State's in general are going to have a down year. In fact, the Big Ten media had in an unofficial poll picked Michigan to win the Big Ten East Division. Right. So there are a lot of guys that left the program. Dwayne Haskins obviously comes to the forefront of the mind. Quarterback went to Washington in the first round. They're throwing in a first-year quarterback who's incredibly talented, but again, this is his first road game. And I think if IU's 2-0 and everyone's kind of on the same wavelength and the team is generally healthy, not only do I think it's possible they win, I think they do pull off the upset.
I like what you're saying, but I can't believe it until I see it. So, but yeah, I mean, anything is possible in the great word of Kevin Garnett.
Consider this too. Ohio State had a great team last year. They won every game but for one, that jaw-dropping upset loss in West Lafayette last season. They went on to win the Rose Bowl. In that year, Ohio State played just four true road games. One of those was the gigantic loss to Purdue. They won by 1 point at Penn State, which is okay. Penn State's a tough team, solid win. They won by 1 point at Maryland in a game where there was no defense whatsoever.
That was a fun game to watch, by the way.
Yeah, well, it depends.
If you like defense, it wasn't a great game, but from a
and then they won. Okay, they won by multiple touchdowns at Michigan State, but Michigan State was really slumping at the end of the season, and the Spartans ended up, I think, 7-5 in the regular season. So, again, Ohio State, they're a great team, but every great team gets upset now and then, and I think this will be IU's chance to finally get that signature win that they've been hunting for so long.
All right, so we just talked about Ohio State. So Ball State, Eastern Illinois, Ohio State. Back to back to back. Then we have UConn. We've already talked about them. So in Nathan's wonderful, beautifully optimistic mind, we are 4-0 going into East Lansing playing the Spartans. Nathan, please tell me you have us beating the Spartans and going 5-0 into the bye week, because that would be an IU football fan's dream.
Well, I think they'll compete. But I don't have the Hoosiers winning in East Lansing. That's always a tough place to play in general. I think MSU is actually going to greatly exceed expectations this year. I think they're a better team than a lot of people give them credit for. So I think IU will go into Michigan State, play hard, and maybe this is a game where IU tries a few different things offensively, especially with Kalen DeBoer having a few games under his belt as the Hoosiers offensive coordinator. But Michigan State, to me, just seems to be a little bit too deep, a little bit too tough on defense especially. So I think the Spartans will win that one. It could be ugly, in all honesty. That could be something like a 13-6 type of game, but who knows?
All right, Blake, your thoughts on Michigan State? How is it going to pan out?
Good question. See, I see Michigan State as IU in 2 to 3 years. Where we have, because we're out recruiting. I mean, if you look at recruiting, guys we're bringing in, we're recruiting right with them or better than them the last 2 years. So I just think they've done it for about 10 years, and they've got that build up, and they've got a program. They don't do anything flashy. They bring in the guys they want to bring in, and they do their schemes, and they're always going to be a 8-9 win team, and they're going to cause some problems. One year they might go for the Big Ten championship, and then next year they might win 3 games because of just some of the issues. The same thing IU is going to have, because they're not going to get all the 5-star, high 4-star guys. But I think that's who IU needs to be in the next 3 to 4 years. I think that's where we're reaching. Going into Michigan State this year and beating them is going to be a challenge for sure. But I don't think they have better players than us. I think their program's better than ours at this point. Right. And Ohio State has better players than us, but their program might be in a different situation than we are now. So I think that's the difference. I don't think we can pull that one off. I think it'll be a good game. I think we'll have our opportunity, but we're gonna play a lot of young guys still, and they're gonna make some mistakes, especially early.
Yep.
And that's gonna be the first game they're gonna get thrown in and seeing 90,000 fans. So
right, in a way, yeah. So that's a big test for the Hoosiers. All right, so the next week, bye week. I agree with what they said about Michigan State. It's gonna be a tough win and a tough game, just as it is, anyways. Then we got home against Rutgers for homecoming. We talked about them. They were in the must-win / should-win category. Then we have away at Maryland. Now this is an interesting team. They've been going through some turmoil recently with some off-the-field issues, but overall they're a much improved Maryland team. Am I right in saying that? Over what they have been in the recent past.
I think they got they've had some coaching issues. They got a new coach. That's, to me, that would be they're on the fringe of have to win. I mean, if you're going to go to a bowl game, you got to beat Maryland, in my opinion. And I know it's an away game this year, but they're very similar to IU. They just seem like they've had pretty good athletes, but not being able to put together a program. And it's kind of a race to see who's going to do that first between Maryland and Indiana. Who's going to solidify themselves in that 5th spot in the East. And everybody thinks we are that team. It's going to be the fifth team in the East. So I think we got to beat them. I know they got some talent, and I know they do a lot of good things, but that's a team we got to beat if we're going to compete for anything eventually. We got to be ahead of Maryland.
Absolutely. Nathan?
Yeah, here's the problem. And they've really hit the transfer portal hard this offseason. They brought in former Virginia Tech quarterback Josh Jackson. He's probably going to start for them this year. They've brought over some a former Clemson player in Shaq Smith for defense. And that's just a couple of examples. They've really hit the transfer window hard. So it's not like Maryland coach Mike Locksley in his first year is going to be really dealing with a lot of major issues as the team's head coach. This to me is a game I really wish IU had in Bloomington. Unfortunately, since you've got to go to the Terps' place to knock them off, I'm actually gonna call this as a loss for IU. The Terps have a really solid running back, Anthony McFarland, and he's really the top of a 3 or 4 man deep backfield. McFarland ran for over 200 yards against IU and then replicated that effort against Ohio State last season. So this is a tough game. Maryland also really is circling this game on their schedule because this home game against IU is surrounded by games at Purdue, at Minnesota, against Michigan, at Ohio State, Nebraska, and then at Michigan State. So they're circling this game against IU at home and saying, hey, if we have any shot at making a bowl game, we've got to win this one. And that always gives me some concern as someone looking at things from an IU perspective. the Terps are really going to make sure they are focused and they are sharp for this one. I don't think this will be a trap game for Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, we move on from Maryland. I think we'll end up winning. I think we'll beat Maryland. But anyways, moving on from the team with the most interesting uniforms on our schedule to the team with the most iconic uniforms, in my opinion, on the schedule, to away at Nebraska. So Nebraska, second year Scott Frost. Of course, if you don't recognize that name, Scott Frost is the former head coach of UCF and brought them to unprecedented heights as a program. He's a former Nebraska quarterback. We talked about him a little bit media day. He's pretty popular. And so I'll be interested to see what he's done with the program in just 1 year. I don't think they'll be so improved that they're going to compete in the Big Ten West, but I do think they're going to be better than what they were last year. I think they won 4 games last year. Am I right?
Yeah, they won 4.
They won what?
4.
No, 4. Okay, perfect. So I thought you said they won 1. I was like, what? I was like, I don't remember that at all. But yeah, so they won 4 games last year. I think they'll be improved. I think especially they'll get a little bit more wins since they're in the West. But Blake, thoughts on Nebraska? Can we go to Nebraska and beat a historically great program?
They remind me so much of IU basketball, and this I think kind of where we're coming from. There's always high hopes. They've got a good quarterback, but what did Nebraska do to us? Coming into I'm sure they're asking the same questions. Can we go into Bloomington and beat IU basketball? Can we really do that? And I think it's the same kind of question. They haven't proven enough that they've got it turned around. Again, I think they recruit about IU, same as IU. So I mean, recruits. They're not Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State recruit wise. They recruit a lot of 3-star, 4-star guys. They have to show a lot more to me to say we can't beat them. I mean, is going to Nebraska and beating them? I don't know when the last time we even went. I've watched IU football forever. Anybody know when we even played them in Lincoln, Nebraska? I have no idea. That'd be something cool to look up. But
right.
So I don't. It's not like we're afraid to go there because we've gotten our butts kicked so many times in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I don't think our guys would be nervous or scared or anything like that. So I don't see it as a Michigan or somebody we haven't beaten 40 years. So it's just another game for these guys, and they don't care about Nebraska. That's out in the middle of nowhere, and they're going to go play. Absolutely. So I don't know that we can beat them, but I think it's a winnable game for sure.
Winnable game. Nathan, thoughts on Nebraska? Is it a winnable game in your opinion?
Well, I think if IU played Nebraska 100 times, IU would win, probably 30 or 40 of them. But in this specific situation, the schedule really does no favors for IU here because, as we just talked, the Hoosiers would have played a road game at Maryland the previous week. And now you've got to play the second road game in consecutive weeks against a team that is just going to be coming off of a bye. Unfortunately, Nebraska, the way the schedule works out, they have an off week the same week that IU's playing Maryland. So the Cornhuskers, who are clearly one of the most polarizing, unpredictable teams in college football right now, that doesn't necessarily mean bad. Nobody knows how low their floor is, and nobody knows how high their ceiling is. In fact, just a week ago, in that unofficial poll that I cited earlier, the Big Ten media, the majority of them picked Nebraska to win the Big Ten West, which is crazy considering this team started 0-6 last year before they strung together a few wins at the end of the year. So There's a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability around this Nebraska team. I think the schedule just really hurts IU in this situation. So I would be shocked if the Hoosiers went into Lincoln in front of that 90,000, 100,000 person crowd and found a way to win. So what I have now is after a 5-1 start, back-to-back losses, to have IU at 5-3.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm with you. I don't think we're going to go in and beat Nebraska. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten West, honestly. But, that's an interesting pick by the media, especially over that Wisconsin team. But, yeah, I guess we're going to lose Nebraska, in my opinion. Moving on, next home game, November 2nd, Northwestern at home. The Wildcats won, of course, I mentioned this earlier, won the Big Ten West and played Ohio State in Lucas Oil for the Big Ten Championship last year and gave them one heck of a game. I was there. It was a lot of fun. Go Cats. Anyways, Nathan, how are we going to fare against Northwestern? It's at home. We're coming off a apparent loss at Nebraska. Do you think we can bring it to the Wildcats?
Yeah, as far as bowl aspirations are concerned, I think this is the game that IU fans and players have to circle and highlight as really the biggest swing game of the season, and that's just the way I look at it. Northwestern's got a really good program, and Pat Fitzgerald's a really good coach. But this is also a Northwestern team that had some losses to the NFL last year, and from a depth standpoint, they may not be at the same level as they were last year, where they won the Big Ten West. So the Wildcats at the same time do have a very, very tough beginning of their schedule. And in fact, IU is in this odd stretch of just one road game for Northwestern out of 6 games overall in the second half of their season. They have a stretch where 5 of 6 games are played in Evanston in the second half of the year, which is really unusual. Usually you see, teams alternating home and road games or something like that. So the game's in Bloomington. If IU wants to make a bowl game, this is the game they have to win. And this is the portion of the season that I have titled DeBoer time. I mean, Kalen DeBoer at this stretch, he's got a bye week that took place after week 5. I think this is the stretch where IU might have to outscore their opponents. Northwestern historically is a tough defensive team. IU's got to find a way to make 0-point possessions into 3 and 3-point possessions into 7. Really converting in the red zone is going to be a key in this game. I don't think IU will get it done in this one. Northwestern's all about if people won't respect us, we're just going to show you. We're just going to beat you at your place. If IU beats Northwestern, that's great. But the Wildcats are such a great program. Again, they made the Big Ten title game last year, getting contributions across the board, freshmen to seniors. If IU wins it, great. But they're going to have to show me. They're going to have to show me that they can beat a great program like Northwestern's.
All right. Hand off to you, Blake. Wildcats.
Yep. Yeah, the Michigan State and Northwestern are to me the same team. They're used to winning. They know how to win. We got to play well to beat them. They're not going to give you any game. You're going to have to go out and beat them instead of just, going out and scoring 21. If you're up 21-0 first quarter, it's going to be still a dogfight. They're not going to give up. Like to me, like a Maryland, still like those kind of teams. You get up 21-0, it could be over. Because they just don't know how to come back and win. Yep. Northwestern's not that way. They're used to winning. They won the West last year, just like everybody said. But to me again. If we want to make that next step, Northwestern's a team we have to beat. So we got to, and I think that will change with the ability to score points, the running game, a good offensive line. I think if we start dominating the line of scrimmage with some of our athletes, then we have an opportunity to do a lot more things than what people think we can. And then with our defense behind it, I think we're going to be hard to beat in some games. And I think Northwestern might be one of those games that they just aren't going to be able to score enough points to stay up with us.
I think that's a great point because honestly, I feel like IU will either win or be close in every game they play in this year. Yep. And Kalen DeBoer is the wild card in all of this. IU's new offensive coordinator. How much does he elevate IU's offense this year? If the Hoosiers make a one-step improvement, then they'll probably have the same record. But if they can convert a large percentage of red zone scores into touchdowns. I think last year IU got points in something like 80% of their red zone possessions. Right. Fresno State, whose offense was run by Kalen DeBoer, scored points in something like 90%. That kind of thing cumulatively makes a difference over time. How much does DeBoer elevate this team's offense? Because the wide receiver group is exceptional. The running back room is deep. This team might have to score 40 or 50 points in a game to win some of these. And I don't know if Northwestern is that game specifically, but if DeBoer elevates this offense, they could have a special season. They've got the talent. You're also running into a ton of really tough programs in the Big Ten.
Right. Absolutely. The Big Ten is stacked. By the way, I react the way I did because, I don't know. I'm just not. I can't be optimistic about IU football until they show me. I've been hurt too many times. Anyways. Especially if it's close games, I have been tortured. Like that Minnesota game last year was absolute torture. Anyways, moving on away. That's November 16th at Penn State. We go to Penn State, which has been a place that's been a bit of a rough spot for us historically for IU football. Can we get it done, Blake?
Penn State's the game that it seems like we always just get blown out early, and it's it's an issue right off the bat. So I think there was one game the last couple of years we've competed, but other than that, it's just been we haven't competed with them very well. I don't know what that is, and that's kind of the question between Penn State and Nebraska, where I think going into Penn State they think already negative that hey, this is going to be a battle, and we haven't been successful yet. So I think that has something to do with it. But no, I think this is going to be a loss for us.
All right, Nathan.
Well, now on that note, Penn State has been challenged in Bloomington.
True.
When I
That's true.
Penn State in Indiana, but Happy Valley is always a tough place to play. I think, Matt, I'm sorry I'm going to have to do this to you, but it's going to be another down to the wire game. I think it's going to be another one of those close ones. I feel like IU might have 9 of those out of 9 conference games. I really do. I think every game could potentially be decided by one score. But I mean, except maybe IU home game against Rutgers. I think the Hoosiers will be able to put away Rutgers easily. This game at Penn State, I think, will be close. I think it'll be hard fought, but I think Penn State just has a little bit too much talent, even though they lost their quarterback from last year in Trace McSorley and their running back in Miles Sanders, and they lost a wide receiver to transfer in Juwan Johnson this year. I still think Penn State's got a little bit too much for IU to handle, especially with this being in Pennsylvania. But again, I think this is going to be a game where IU fans are tuned in deep into the fourth quarter on the edge of their seats.
Yay! No, but that's good for the program. If we're hanging with these larger programs, these more athletic, these established programs, we're hanging with them. That only gives us confidence for the upcoming years, and especially since we're playing so many young players, that means great things for the future of the program. It's just disheartening when you don't see results on the field as a fan, but from the players and the coaches' perspective, a close game at Penn State after games against Northwestern and Nebraska, if we can do that, I think that's not a win, but it's at least a little bit of a pat on the shoulder, like we're getting there, we're going somewhere. All right, so next game is November 23rd, home against Michigan. Look, we always play Michigan since I have been watching IU football, we've always played Michigan at home, insanely close. So is this the year when they're expected to win the Big Ten East? Is this the year that we derail the Michigan Wolverines, finally beating them for the first time in what seems like forever at home, and Harbaugh goes into this long tirade in the post-game conference about how the refs were doing something because he's always complaining about the refs? Is this the game? Is this how it happens, Blake? Can we possibly beat the Michigan Wolverines at home this year?
This is my second least favorite team in the Big Ten. It's just made me sick the last few years of how close we've been.
Right.
And we're better now. And I'm not sure that they are. I think they've been about where they've been. If Ohio State have Urban Meyer back, had all their pieces back, they'd be picked to win the Big Ten again. Right. So I'm not. I think they're picked to win the Big Ten because Ohio State's not. Not because they're better than they've been. I think they're just the normal Michigan team that, I had this marked down as a win. He had the Ohio State. Nathan did. He thought the better chance of beating Ohio State. I thought we might be a little too young for that, but I think by where we're at now, a lot of our young guys have been playing defense all year, and we're down at the end. I think with scoring more points, I think this is the year.
I like where your head's at. Nathan, are you drinking from the same punch bowl?
I love it, Blake. No, this is another one that I think will be a close game, and I'm not even that big of a Harbaugh fan. He used to be the quarterback of the Bears back in the 90s, but and it's a team that I root for in the NFL. But look, Michigan to me is just a little bit too big for IU. And Tom Allen noted during Media Day last Thursday that his areas of concern for IU's team are the depth on the offensive line and the defensive line. Now, hopefully by this point, someone stood out, and hopefully multiple players have stood out in the trenches. But Michigan's just a team that's going to run the ball down your throat. They have a returning quarterback in Shea Patterson that can hit you with a deep ball. Michigan could be, they're beatable. I think this will be close, but I think the Wolverines will have just enough to come away with something like a 5 or 6 or 7 point win at Bloomington. So after I had IU beating Ohio State and starting 5-1, I now have the Hoosiers 5-6 going into the final game of the season.
Hey, Matt, I usually agree with Nathan, but he's wrong on this one.
Okay, all right.
Michigan complained that we hit them too hard.
Yes, that is true.
We were too physical and we hit them too hard. So, I mean, what's the middle? That's what they think of IU. I think that's a good terms of just beating them around again. Simon, we need to give a little love on the podcast to Simon because he's my favorite IU football player. He might, after watching that Michigan game and going back and watching it again, he is an animal. And he's going to, I just feel like they are going to control the line of scrimmage in a lot of games. And the mentality's changed. We're no longer the team that gets beat up on by Michigan. We go after Michigan. And, Harbaugh got mad about it, that they're overly physical with us. And that might be the greatest thing they've ever said. So,
right.
I think we're going to pound them a little bit. So,
yeah. Well, all that is true. You're referring to Simon Stepaniak, right? The offensive lineman. Yeah. That's true. And I think it'll be a real slugfest for 4 quarters. I just think maybe Michigan will end up winning by a few points.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down to.
I also think Michigan. Again. I'll point out. I'm not going to be optimistic about IU football until they show it to me. So I'm going to go ahead and say Michigan.
What do they got to be? What do they got to do for you to be optimistic about?
I think it'll win one game that I think that they were going to lose, and if they do it, I'll be optimistic for a very long time.
I think you only have them winning 4 games. So if they beat anybody other than the 4, then you're on the bandwagon.
Absolutely. If they beat Maryland, Northwestern, Michigan State,
I write that down.
Okay, yeah, I will be optimistic. All right. If we can yeah, I'll be optimistic, but I'll be really optimistic if we can beat Ohio State or Michigan. God, I'll be over the moon. But if we can get more than 4 or 5 wins this season, I'll be optimistic. Especially if we start out with more than 4 or 5 wins. Anyways, moving on. Last game is away against the Boilermakers in West Lafayette. A much improved Purdue team from what we were playing 3 to 4 years ago. Of course, Coach Braum has done an excellent job with the Boilermakers. Sorry. Excuse me. Anyways, is there a chance we can go to West Lafayette, Nathan, and get your 6th win against the Purdue Boilermakers?
So, again, my season projection for IU is kind of wonky. I have them winning 5 of their first 6, including a victory over Ohio State.
True.
But then I have them losing 5 in a row after that to just really tough Big Ten teams. I do. I think IU's got a lot of depth. I think there might be a little bit of a technical issue here, but we're just gonna plow through it. Can you hear me, Matt?
Yeah, you're good. Keep on going.
All right. So yeah, I do think IU can go into West Lafayette and win. To get the big elusive 6th win, they haven't done so in the last couple of seasons, but I think they're going to do it now. There's going to be another close game. It's going to be another nail biter. I think Logan Justice kicks the game-winning field goal at the buzzer to send IU to a bowl game, and Tom Allen runs onto the field at Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette and starts celebrating.
Man, that's a dream right there. Anyways, Blake, are you in the same boat as Nathan here? You think we're gonna go to West Lafayette and beat the Boilermakers?
Yes.
Okay. I
would not. I don't care if we were sending like the JV team of Ben Davis. I would pick them over Purdue. So that one I can't even really have a conversation about. So.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna disagree with you guys.
Oh no!
Rondale Moore is about to have 200 yards receiving on us. But anyways, I just don't see us going into Purdue and beating Purdue. Again, call me pessimistic if you want.
That's not what I was thinking about.
But like I said, I don't see this. It's true. I will be optimistic when they prove me wrong, but until they prove me wrong, I'm right. So, look, I think this is a much better. This team is a much. Don't think about the logic on that statement. This is a much better team than the last 2 years. But I think this is an incredibly hard schedule and an incredibly hard league. And that being said, I think we're like 1 or 2 years away from us being like an 8-win team. But like at the same time, I can't wrap my head around us like going to, Michigan State or going to Ohio or having Ohio State or Michigan come home and us beating them. So, if it happens, I'm going to be the happiest person on earth. But until then, I just can't see it. So let's wrap it up. This segment with, all right, what's the final record going to be? So if you had to put money on it, what games are we winning, and what's it going to look like? Are we going to be in a bowl game, Nathan?
So first of all, I'm not sure how much we advocate gambling here at Indiana HQ and the Hoosier Sound.
It's about to be legal, so
So funny enough, the Vegas odds right now, the over/under in IU football wins, have the Hoosiers at exactly 6. I mean, that's how thin the margin for error is this year. And in fact, they think it's a little bit more likely than not that the Hoosiers get over 6 wins. So we're not just asking this question because it's the same question every year for IU football. This year, it is it is on the fence. At least that's what the odds makers think. So for IU football fans who are real passionate about this team, it's going to be a roller coaster ride this year. I have the Hoosiers at 6-6. I think we've talked about kind of the 4 obvious wins. I also think they'll beat Ohio State and Bloomington and then win at Purdue. Just the way that works out is kind of a wild ride. So that's where I have IU, and then they go to a bowl game, and hopefully they can achieve the goal that Tom Allen set out for them during Media Day last Thursday, which was we want to win our bowl game. He told us, frankly, point blank, that's what the Hoosiers' goal is. If they can do that, honestly, it'll be a successful season.
I believe so too. Blake, were we going bowling? What's the record?
Yeah, same. Kind of what I said earlier. I think Ramsey 6 and a different quarterback. I think we could win 7-8. So I believe we are, and it'd be a disappointment. It'll be, as a diehard, IU football guy, if we don't get 6 this year, it's going to be a disappointing year. We've gotten better, and we should have been there the last 2 years. So there's no reason we should go backwards again. So,
well, Matt, what do you have?
As the pessimist of the group, I'm thinking more along the lines of 4-8, 5-7, but like playing teams excruciatingly close the whole way, like you said, Nathan. I do think this team is going to be one of those. They talk about it all over the media that we're one of those scary trap teams, but I honestly think this year is going to be the year where we're just even scarier, like Friday the 13th scary for some of these teams, because we're going to be beating them in the fourth quarter, whether it's away or at home for us, and somehow, some way, we're just not going to be able to close it out. And I think that's going to be due to the fact that this team, while I think it's much improved, I still think there's too many question marks for me at important positions like quarterback, and how the offense is going to look with DeBoer, for me to fully, dive in positively to this team. So I'm going to say 4-8, 5-7, but I do think we'll get better as the season goes on, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us go bowling, but that's my output. So sorry.
So we put a poll out there before we jumped onto this podcast, and right now the tweeters are kind of on the fence. 38% think IU will win more than 6 games. 38% think we'll win exactly 6, and 23% do agree with you, Matt, that they'll end up with less than 6. So it's going to be close. I mean, Vegas thinks it's going to be close. The Twitter followers think it's going to be close. So I legitimately think, if outside of those 4 games that we highlighted earlier, the other 8 are going to be real sort of hold on to your seats kind of games.
All right. Well, I'm going to take Twitter's word for it. Usually Twitter's right. That's how it works, right? Anyways, moving on. We got some questions. So Lou from Facebook's asked, is there a home game versus Michigan? Okay, is the home game versus Michigan our best shot at knocking off one of the top upper tier conference teams? We've played them close the last few years, and we get them between their games between Michigan State and Ohio State. So Blake, I'll throw this one to you. I think you mentioned it before, but you think we're going to beat Michigan, right?
Yep, Michigan. Yep, I believe that's the game that we match up better with.
All right, cool. And then we're going to move on to Respectable Adam from Twitter. He asks, best chance for an upset, OSU or Michigan? Blake thinks Michigan. Nathan, you think Ohio State, right?
Exactly. I think Ohio State. And look, if they win either game, I think Hoosier fans would be overjoyed. So hopefully, we'll see if they can win one of those two, because they haven't beaten Ohio State or Michigan in forever.
Right. I'm gonna go positive here. I'm gonna say we have an equal chance at beating both, and I'll let you interpret that as you will. Any last thoughts, guys? Any last thoughts on predictions or whatnot?
Nope. Should be a fun year.
Be a fun year. Nathan?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Look, I'll tell you one thing. If IU was in the Big Ten West, we could see, I think this team is talented enough that they could win 8, 9, or 10 games if they swap places with Purdue, for example. But it's just the Big Ten East has so many demands, and then your crossover games this year at Nebraska, at Purdue, home Northwestern. Not much help given to the Hoosiers there, but these guys are invested. That was my main takeaway from Big Ten Media Days last Thursday. These guys are emotionally invested. They're physically invested. The strength and conditioning coaches. Now I think it's Dave Ballou and Matt Ray. They've come in and they've really implemented their program to try to get the Hoosiers to play 4 quarters. That's the theme that's being repeated again and again and again. Now they have to show it on the field, and I think that's where you are, Matt, and I think that's where IU fans are in general as well.
Absolutely. And thanks, Blake, for coming out. It's always great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Great work. Go check out his workout on indianhq.com. Anyways, that about wraps it up for our 98th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. We'll be back next Monday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. A big thanks to our live audience. I saw a bunch of you guys in the chat. Shout out Coach, Andrew, my dad. Hi, Dad. Thank you guys for coming in and participating in the chat. Make sure you stay tuned through updates on Twitter. Visit our website at indianhq.com and subscribe so you can get these podcasts right away on your phones. Send us your question as the audience on what questions you have, and we'll enter them in on our next episode. Most importantly, if you enjoy our show, leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook. Tell a friend. Share our links. Your support is how we grow this podcast to reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. And this has been Indian HQ and the Hoosier Sound. And we're signing off. Thank you so much, Hoosier Nation. And we'll see you next time.